alcoholic, and I'm a very, very grateful alcoholic, because I know today that a grateful alcoholic won't drink. I have this great peace, this joy, this happiness, this contentment. There's obedience, this tolerance, this understanding, this compassion, forgiveness, and most of all, what we speak about in this great fellowship is unconditional love, with no price tag on it. You see, the point is, if there's no forgiveness in me, how can I forgive people? If there's no love in my life, how can I show love? So these two are very, very important, love and forgiveness. Because if there's no forgiveness, how can I ask God to forgive me? And if there's no love, how can I show love? I came into this fellowship mentally, physically, spiritually bankrupt. I was helpless, I was homeless, and I was jobless. I had become a whiner because I drank wine, a dosser because I couldn't work, a jailbird because I stole muscat. I became a thief, an institutional bird and a jailbird. I've been in mental institutions quite a few times. I've been in 5 different jails. You see, I couldn't live life, I couldn't cope with life, and I couldn't get on with life. People, place and things, couldn't accept them. And for a long time, I was going around reading these crossroads and in the country. I didn't know which one to take. I had the mentality of an 8-year-old. I blamed everything and anything for drink. You see, I'm the alcoholic. My mentality was of an 8-year-old. You see, we're very emotional people, super sensitive people, very lonely people, and at times we are very, very sick. Most of the time we're very, very sick people. You see, I have to deal with the isms of alcoholism. I have to deal with my feelings, my emotions, my actions, my thoughts, my character defects, my shortcomings, the insanity and the unmanageability. Now, how can I deal with all these? I deal with these through the program of recovery. You see, if I look at the first step speaks on alcohol. That's the first half of the first step. The other half of the first step deals with the unmanageability of my life. So when I come to the first step, I have simply to throw in the towel completely. Hold on to no corner of the towel. Admit that drink had destroyed my life. And I can destroy my life today even without drink, if I don't practice the 12 steps in my life. I had lost everything and anything. I was running around from town to town, city to city, on the highways and on the byways. And I could be hungry for 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 days. And as soon as I get a day's work, that night when I got paid, the hunger left me straight away, and I got very, very thirsty. And I'd go in and drink all my money. I'd have nowhere to sleep that night. Maybe in an old car, an old house, underneath a ditch, bus stop, the park. Sometimes I slept in haystacks. And on the farmer's afraid of his life if he caught me, because you know when you're drunk and you smoke, you could be lighting a match there or drop a light and dog and the haystack would go up. So there again, you know, sometimes the farmer would see me, most times he didn't see me. And I'd be very, very hungry, because I wouldn't eat for maybe 4 or 5 days, and the hunger, if I was in an old house, an old car, any place like that, it was the hunger that drove me out, looking for food. And I often went to travel miles upon miles for a sandwich and a cup of tea. And my shoes might be leaking, my feet used to be bleeding, and I was in a bad state. I mightn't have a wash for a full week, maybe 2 weeks. You know, I was carrying simply my wardrobe around on my shoulders at those times. I had become a very, very sick individual person. So when I speak about gratitude in my life, it covers a multitude. When I speak about a little bed, there was lots of times in my life I had no bed. So today I'm so very, very grateful for the little bed. I'm so very grateful for the food. And all this happened because I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. And for a few years in this fellowship I was absolutely doing nothing. I was here at chapter 5 being read out. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. This is the path of the first 100 people who started the program and who wrote the program. See, in the beginning there was Bill and Dr. Bob. These were our co-founders. And over the weeks and the months and the years came to 100, and then they started writing this program. Started writing a big book, and I totally believe in chapter 5 today, because in chapter 5 it says go to any lengths to get sober, and I have to go to any lengths to remain sober. Now sobriety means, to me, is putting the 12 steps into practice. You see, the 12 steps is about living and coping and getting on with life, accepting people, place and things. There again, the irresponsible becomes responsible in Alcoholics Anonymous. So when I look at the second step, being returned to sanity, I need God in my life here. I need to ask God, let me try and do all the right things. Because insanity is doing all the wrong things, sanity is doing the right things. I have become a very responsible person today through this program, through the 12 steps. I love what the 12 steps has to say. The 12th one, to practice these principles in all of my affairs. No matter where I go, I carry the tag of being a member of the greatest fellowship in the world. I don't curse or swear today, thanks be to God for that. I try and speak about the steps, the program of recovery, and I always try and give people hope. There's honesty, there's open-mindedness, there's peace on this earth through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. No, it took me quite a while. I didn't get sober overnight. The first 2 years I was giving the people the impression that I knew everything. And I used to be in bits and pieces every night going home from a meeting. I was afraid to ask, or ashamed to ask, or pride was stopping me from asking people questions. If people had a problem, go to Tony. Tony would solve it. Tony was like the clown, the actor, the joker, the director. Chapter 5 describes me down to a T. I knew everything, and every night I'd go home, leave the meeting in bits and pieces. When it came down to brass tacks, I simply knew nothing. And it was pain that drove me to asking questions in Alcoholics Anonymous. Pain is the cornerstone to spirituality, especially if all the right actions is taken. I said I'd ask them questions and people was only too pleased to answer them for me. This is the great fellowship, unconditional love with no rewards. And today, I suppose I am one of the most contented people in the world. It's great honesty. I'd say there's 97, 98% honest. And I keep trying for the other 2 or 3%, because God loves a trier. Now this step 3, I ran my life for an awful long time and I made an awful mess out of it. And step 3 to me is the willingness is the key, and this key will open up lots of doors which have been closed for years. They'll open little bits at a time. When I hand my life, my will, over to God, and let God run my life, God has made a magnificent, happy, peaceful, joyous life for me. And the reason why that is, I simply accept joyfully, gratefully and gladly anything that will happen on that day. And if I continue on with the other 9 steps after the 3rd, all doors will be opened up. And this is what I love about willingness. God has been so good to me, and God gets an awful doing in Alcoholics Anonymous. We call him higher power, we call him this, that and the other, instead of calling him God, because he is God. God is doing for me what I could not do for myself. And if people constantly keep coming to this great fellowship, and they constantly keep reading a big book on the 12 steps and the other literature of Alcoholics Anonymous, it tells me in the 12th step I will call him God eventually. I will give him his proper title. And this is why, you see, to say our program is suggested. Now, there is absolutely nothing suggested in Alcoholics Anonymous today for me. You see, A is a package, and I have to accept the package fully. If I don't accept the package fully, it's a half measure. And when I accept the package fully, that means coming to meetings, getting a sponsor, practicing the 12 steps, and reading the other literature. I can have a life beyond my wildest dreams today, and that doesn't mean I have a pocket full of money. I have a pocket full of nothing. I have very little money today. I have no car, no big house, no big job. But what I do have is this great peace of mind. In other words, I do have a life beyond my wildest dreams. I'm at peace with myself, peace with the world, and peace with God. And all the money in the world can't buy what A has to offer. And when I speak about service in Alcoholics Anonymous, A is like a big tree. There's a lot of branches on the tree, and all these branches has to be fulfilled. And I have found over the years, being in service, I forgot about my own little problems and troubles. I concentrated on what I could do for this great fellowship, with gratitude in my heart for what it has given me. So I keep going like that, see, through the program. I love everyone in this great fellowship, believe it or believe it not. You see, this is program's all about me. It's what I do. It isn't what other people do. A lot of people get mixed up, you know, they think they put the cart before the horse. This is all about spirituality, growing spiritually, acting spiritually, being spiritually, talking spiritually. And all this comes, it takes time, but it's all there for anyone who wants it. And I want this program more today than the first day I came in, because it has given me so much peace, happiness and contentment and serenity in my life. You see, we have slogans in Alcoholics Anonymous. When you come in, slogans, they're very, very important. Easy does it. One day at a time. Day go I but for the grace of God. Now think. Let go and let God. And these are masterful. These are little diamonds. You know, and they're very, very good. But then, this is where the 12 steps. The slogans will help you. They will help you to build up your confidence. Because this program, as long as you can count to one, you needn't be a genius inside an Alcoholics Anonymous to get sober. All you have to do is be able to count to one. One day, one drink, one me, one program, and one God. You see, when Dr. Bob was asked what were the ingredients of Alcoholics Anonymous, 3 words: love and service. Love your fellow human being and be a servant to those people who you serve. Come into the true spirit of the fellowship. Don't be on the outside looking in, be on the inside looking out. And see, it is up to us to give away this message. It is up to us to practice the 3 legacies which has been given to us. It is our fellowship. And it is up to us to make sure for the next generation who's going to develop the disease of alcoholism, may the doors of AA always be open. And if you're ever sponsoring someone, try and get a sponsor who has done service, a sponsor who has read a big book, a sponsor who practices the 12 steps in their life. And these people will guide you through the big book, guide you into service and guide you through the 12 steps. And there's wonderful, wonderful people in this great fellowship. The great thing is, I came into this fellowship knowing absolutely nothing. Today I know a small bit, and I keep coming, and I will learn more and more and more. You see, the name of the game in this fellowship is about contented sobriety. And contentment means that everyone can gain from you. You can be a great example to people. And the greatest thing I can do for this great fellowship myself is the power of example. No matter where I go, I carry the tag of being a member of the greatest fellowship in the world. My example is always good, and of great love in my life. When I look at the fourth step, a fearless model inventory. And fearless to me means I go through anything to get the wreckage of the past written down. And this is where it speaks about the character defects. The character defects are universally known as the 7 deadly sins: pride, lust, anger, gluttony, sloth, jealousy, hatred, envious. Now these are all deadly in my life. And it speaks about fear. The fourth step speaks on fear. Fear will absolutely cripple me. I have found out in this great fellowship that fear is a lack of faith, trust and belief in God. I have to get God into my life. And then I have to get the steps into my life. And God won't let me stand still. If I want to travel up these 12 steps, I must always remember that God has taken the obsession for drink away from me. He will not let me stand still if I want to travel further. Now I must think what these character defects are. What way have I put them into my life to hurt people, scandalize people, to use people, to abuse people, to hurt people. And this is a lifelong job, you see. When I get it all written down, the wreckage of the past, and I come to the 5th step, this is where I confess the wreckage of my past, because my past has been holding me back for an awful long time. I was afraid to tell anyone. I was ashamed. But now with the help of God again, and with the help of a sponsor, now I haven't done this step with my sponsor. I went along to a spiritual advisor. One time I was doing a spiritual weekend. And I asked the priest, that's what the big book tells me, I do it with one of my own. I'm a Catholic and I do it with a priest. And as I was doing this, the walls was falling down from around me. Because it's no good telling God what I have done, because God knows everything I've done. But it's letting a human being or human beings into my life. And the wreckage of the past for me was a terrible wreckage and a big past. And here I was going to let go of it by confessing it. And it tells me that if I make a bad job of it, knowing that I have made a bad job, knowing that I have left something out which I should have confessed, the possibility is I become a very unhappy person. And then the other possibility is that I could get drunk again. So I have to do this right. You might hear people saying sometimes, do it and make a bad job of it. That way you can do it again. To me, that's a half measure. I must actually, anything I do today, I must try my level best. And that's why I go on with life. If I'm saying a few prayers, I do my best to say the prayers right. If I sweep the floor at home, I make sure I try and make a job, do it properly. If I'm washing the dishes, make sure they're clean and dry and all this. And this is where, and on the 5th step for me, it was like a little trickle of water. When I was halfway through, it was a stream, and I was finished. It was a gigantic river. And the peace that I felt for the first time in my life, there was a mountain lifted off my shoulders. I felt like I could fly. But then the thought struck me that if God wanted me to fly, He'd have given me wings. All I have is clay feet. And this step is so important because there's very private things in this step. This is where a man of the cloth, I would always suggest, a man of the cloth. So today, as I think back over when I done the 5th step, the peace, the joy, and the book tells me that I'll have a new life, a new beginning. A new beginning of a new life on this. And this was simply marvellous for me. I felt, some marvellous light, a huge guy, gigantic weight off my shoulders. This is why the 12 steps are so important. If I don't practice them in my life, I'm not going to recover. People will say, take your time, you have plenty of time. How long do you want to be a dry drunk with nothing right in your life? Your head half a mile in front of your shoulders. You have to deal with the ism of alcoholism. And the sooner you start on the 12 steps, the sooner you are going to recover. Maybe some people might look at it the other way, but that is the way I would look at it. I have so much love in my life for each and every one of you in this great fellowship. I'd love to give you some peace that I have in my life. You see, in this fellowship, I'm only accountable for my own sins. I'm accountable for nobody else's sins. I can't carry anyone else's pain, only my own pain. This program starts with me and it finishes with me. And I love this program. I love the fellowship. I love the people. And I love what it has given me. So when I look at the sixth step, the 6th step is about character defects. And they are better known as the 7 deadly sins. You see, character defects are mentioned on the 4th, and they're also mentioned on the 6th. On the 6th step, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these effects of character. This is the step that separates the men from the boys. So declares a well-loved clergyman who happened to be one of A's greatest friends. He goes on to explain that any person capable of enough willingness and honesty to try repeatedly step 6 on all his faults without any reservations whatsoever has indeed come a long way spiritually, and therefore entitled to be called a man who is sincerely trying to grow in the image and likeness of his own Creator. Now this is great news, trying to grow in his own Creator, the likeness. And this is what, you see, these 7 deadly sins, they will destroy me, they'll crucify me. Not only will they do this to me, but there again, I'll get these in my head and I can destroy other people through them. Now if enough pride comes into my life, pride will destroy me. And pride has destroyed me over the years before I knew what it was, and I knew how to, see, this program helps me to deal with it. And then I need God to remove it, or to put it on the wraps. You see, these are God given. Now, if God hadn't given me those character defects in my life, I'd be like a robot. It's when I start misusing these character defects. Now, if enough hatred comes into my life, hatred will lead me to murder. Murder is a terrible, terrible thing. But if I can turn that hatred around to loving that person, it will enhance my life. The same with gluttony. If I can destroy my health by overeating, just eat enough and leave the table a slight bit hungry. This is marvellous again for me. If I get jealousy, see, jealousy is like a cancer inside my head. It'll eat my head away. So I cannot afford to let these into my life. See, these are like a snake pit. Their heads will keep popping up and down. They're on the wraps, but their heads will keep popping up and down like a snake pit. And this is why it's a daily program. This is why it's a program of action. I have to take action on these. And that is what I do, you know, in this great fellowship. If I'm lying in the bed here and thinking about holidays and thinking about a car and thinking about all the good things in life and I have no money in my pocket and I have no intentions of working, how do I achieve these things? But if I get off of the bed and I go out and get work and I put away a little few euros every so often, at the time will come when I will have enough money for a holiday. You know, see, action again. The wisdom that's in our big book and in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous is unbelievable. For it's there. All I have to do is get into my life and then put it into practice. It's like the big book. The big book comes in 3 parts. You read it, you digest it, and what you digested you put into practice. I know there's none of us saints in this fellowship, but we strive for perfection with the 6 deadly sins, 7 deadly sins concerned, because they're blocking the true spirit. They're actually blocking us going on to the next step, the 7th step. And this is the only step that perfection is spoken about. So that is what I have to do if I want to progress. I cannot stand still in this program. There's some of these character defects I might love, and I might say, one word I must never use is never. But I mustn't wait too long either for these big character defects to support me back. I'm blocking the true spirit, blocking God's light, not come into my life. See, in this one you must walk in God's light. These are blocking the light from coming in. These are blocking me from going forward. So these are a must, they must go. So now we look at the 7th. And the 7th is about gaining a little bit of humility. And if I don't gain a little bit of humility, I'm not going to succeed in this program. And when I do gain a little bit of humility, I must go after more and more and more of it. And I'll simply, when I gain this humility, it's very, very hard. It's a gift, humility. You see, on each step that I take, I humble myself. It's a humbling experience for an alcoholic. But humility then is a different thing altogether. You know, it's like the 12 steps to practice these principles. I must try and gain as much humility as possible. And the more humility that comes into my life, the more spiritually I will get. You know, I won't be like the guy I was when I first came in. The change that will take place in my life. You see, spirituality to me means it's a big glow inside my stomach. And each time I do all the right things, the glow gets warmer and better and better. And when I start doing the wrong things, the glow goes out and it gets cold. My thinking goes all funny. I'm inclined into doing the wrong things. And also in this fellowship is a price tag. You do the right things, you gain the rewards. If you do the wrong things, you pay the price. And sometimes the price can be put in our hand for that drink. And if we do that, we are back in hell. You see, the alcoholic was in hell before he came into Alcoholics Anonymous. And through these 12 steps, these 12 golden steps, each step is a stepping stone to contented sobriety. And the last 3 steps, the 10th, the 11th and the 12th, are the maintenance steps for contented sobriety. So my dear friends, don't stand still. Keep growing. Keep climbing up the 12 steps. And when we come to the 12th step, we go back to the first again. We start reading more into it. Because I have the big book for an awful lot, a lot of years now, and each time I read it I get a different and a better meaning. Parts that I didn't understand, I understand them today. They jump out at me today. And the wisdom that's in our big book is unbelievable. Wisdom alone won't keep me sober, but if I put that wisdom into practice, that's what it tells. So I'm so grateful today, to have what I have today. I have a wardrobe full of clothes today. One time, what I had on my shoulders was my wardrobe. And the funny thing is, I have a beautiful life today. What I have, money can't buy today. I keep going to the fellowship today. I want more of this wisdom, more of this strength in my life. God is my strength. Sins were harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 8 and 9 are concerned with personal relations. First we take a look backward and try to discover where we have been at fault. Next we make a vigorous attempt to repair the damage we have done. And third, having thus cleaned away the debris of the past, we consider how, with our newfound knowledge of ourselves, that we may develop the best possible relations with every human being we know. This is a very large order. It is a task which we may never perform with increasing skill, but never really finish. Learning how to live in the greatest peace, partnership and brotherhood with all men and women of whatever description. So this here again, we take time to read into this step, to go to our sponsor and look the best possible way to do it, and our sponsor will, show us and tell us and help us the best way to do this. This is where we backtrack into our lives. This is where we take the inventory. You see, in this great fellowship, you have the 4th and 5th, the inventory, model inventory. The 8th and 9th, this is where we make an inventory of all the things we have done to people. And on the 10th, this is where we make a daily inventory. And to me, any program with 3 inventories is simply out of this world. These obstacles, however, are very real. The first and one of the most difficult has to do with forgiveness. The moment we ponder a twisted or broken relationship with another person, our emotions go to our defense. To escape looking at the wrongs we have done another, we resentfully focus on the wrongs they have done us. This is especially true, for he has in fact behaved badly at all times. But there again, it isn't what people has done to us, it's what we have done to these people. You see, I can make wrong and turn it into right. This is how twisted that my little mind can become. So we're dealing with very, very sick emotions. And we have to deal with these emotions. And the more we think about this, and the more we put it down, and on the night, then to come face to face with these people, then we will really get to know about step 8. It's a tough step, and it's a sad step, and a joy step. And why it's a sad step is that a lot of these things we have done to these people, a lot of them are dead. A lot of them has shifted away. So we reflect on these and each one, and we put a question mark. We might next ask ourselves what we mean when we say that we have harmed other people. What kind of harm do people do one another? Anyway, to define the word harm in a practical way, we might call it the result of instincts in collision, which causes physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual damage to people. If our tempers are consistently bad, we arouse anger in others. If we lie or cheat, we deprive others not only of their worldly goods, but of their emotional insecurity and peace of mind. We really issue them an invitation to become continuously and mad and vengeful in our sex conduct. If our sex conduct is selfish, we may excite jealousy, misery, and a strong desire to retaliate in others. So there again, these are some of the things that we have to get down and to try and when we come on the night to go to these people and behave. But here again, we must use prudence. Having carefully surveyed the whole area of human relationships and having decided exactly what personality traits in us injured and disturbed others, we now commence to ransack memory for the people to whom we have given offence. To put a finger on the nearby and most deeply damaged ones shouldn't be too hard to do. Then, as year by year, we walk back through our lives, as far as memory will reach, we shall be bound to construct a long list of people who have to some extent or others been affected. And this is a lifelong job. So now we have our list made, and to me it was a very, very long list of all these people. I have the question mark on each one. And here then I come to step 9. Made a direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And what I need on this step is good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, and prudence. These are the qualities we shall need when we take step 9. After we have made a list of people we had harmed, have reflected carefully upon each instance, and have tried to possess ourselves of the right attitude in which to proceed, we will see that the making of direct amends divides those we should approach into several classes. There will be those who ought to be dealt with just as soon as we become responsibly confident that we can maintain our sobriety. There will be those to whom we can make only partial restitution, least complete disclosure to them or others, more harm than good. There will be the other cases where action ought to be deferred, and still others in which, by the very nature of the situation, we shall never be able to make direct personal contact at all. Most of us begin making certain kinds of direct amends from the day we joined Alcoholics Anonymous. The moment we tell our families that we're really going to try the program, the process has begun. In this area there are seldom any questions of timing or caution. We want to come in the door shouting the good news after coming from our first meeting, or perhaps after we have finished reading the book. So when we do these steps, a lot of peace, joy, happiness and contentment, that's what comes into our lives. And there again, this is where we start growing spiritually. And this spirituality is one of the greatest gifts that God can bestow on man. And it's all there. The great thing is, we do these 12 steps and that's what comes into our lives. Now, step 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. As we work the first 9 steps, we prepare ourselves for the adventure of a new life. But when we approach step 10, we commence to put our way of living to practice. Practical use, day by day, in fair weather or foul. Then comes the acid test. Can we stay sober, keep emotional balance, and live to good purpose under all conditions? And the answer to that is yes, if we really practice these 12 steps in our life. A continuous look at our assets and liabilities, and a real desire to learn and grow by this means are necessities for us. We alcoholics have learned this the hard way. More experienced people, of course, in all times and places, have practiced unsparingly self-survey and criticism. But the wise have always known that no one can make such much of his life until self-searching becomes a regular habit, until he is able to admit and accept what he finds, and until he patiently, persistently tries to correct what is wrong. When a drunk has a terrific hangover because he drank heavily yesterday, he cannot live well today. But there is another kind of hangover, which in all experience, whether we are drinking or not, that is an emotional hangover. We can try to stop making unreasonable demands upon those we love. We can show kindness where we had shown none. With those we dislike, we can begin to practice justice and courtesy, perhaps going out of our way to understand and help them. Whenever we fail any of these people, we can promptly admit it to ourselves always, and to them also. When the admission would be helpful, courtesy, kindness, justice and love are the keynotes by which we may come into harmony with practically everybody. When in doubt, we can always pause saying, not my will, but thine be done. And we can often ask ourselves, am I doing to others as I would have them to do to me today? When evening comes, perhaps just try before going to sleep. Many of us draw up a balance sheet for the day. This is a good place to remember that entry taking is not always done in red ink. It's a poor day indeed when we haven't done something right. As a matter of fact, and the waking hours are usually well filled with things that are constructive. Good intentions, good thoughts, and good acts are there for us to see. Even when we have tried hard and failed, we may chalk up as one of the greatest credits of all. Under these conditions, the pains of failure are converted into assets. One of them, we receive the stimulation we need to go forward. And this is what spirituality is all about. It's okay to make mistakes, but if we keep repeating the same mistakes, we are not going forward, we're going backward. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, but correct them and try not to make them again. And this is, God will help us in all these things. He will give us every bit of help that we need. He'll be with us until the end of time. And if we want to lead this life that the steps has to offer, that will simply happen also. So we come now to step 11. So through prayer meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, as we understood Him praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Prayer and meditation are our principal means of conscious contact with God. We are active folks, enjoying the satisfaction of dealing with realities of life, usually for the first time in our lives, and strenuously trying to help the next alcoholic who comes along. So it isn't surprising that we often tend to slide serious meditation and prayer as something not really necessary. To be sure, we feel it's something that might help us to meet an occasional emergency. But at first, many of us are apt to regard it as somewhat mysterious skill of clergymen, from which we may hope to get a second-hand benefit, or perhaps we don't believe in these things at all. And this is where the sickness comes in. But we do our best, and we do get a lot of this step into our lives. Now and then we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality which is God's kingdom, and we would be confronted and assured that our own destiny is in that realm. We will secure for it for so long as we try. However faltering, we find that and do the will of our own Creator. It is step in the development of a kind of humility that makes it possible for us to receive God's help. Yet it is only a step. We will want to go further. We will want the good that is in us all, even in the worst of us, to flower and to grow. Most certainly we shall need bracing air and abundance of food, but first of all we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our step into the sun. How then shall we meditate? You see, all the religious people and all the spiritual people of this world, if we say to ourselves, how can I pray, how can I meditate? The spiritual people of this world has left us abundance of books on prayer and books of meditation. So there again, and he has even left us places where we can go and do this. You see, if we think of Francis, and his prayer was, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred I may bring love, that where there is wrong I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord I may bring harmony, and where there is error that I may bring truth, that where there is doubt I may bring faith, and where there is despair I may bring hope, that where there is shadows I may bring light, and where there is sadness I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may rather seek to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is self-forgetting that one finds, it is forgiving that one is forgiven, it is in the dying that one awakens to eternal life. Now this was the prayer of Francis, who was not an alcoholic, and who really went through the ringer. And this was a man who suffered so much on this earth. Like us alcoholics, we have suffered immensely. But there again, we do fall in this category of trying to making us a channel of thy peace. Next came the expression of an aspiration and a hope for ourselves. We hope, God willing, that we might be able to find some of these treasures too. This he would try to do by what he called self-forgetting, and what he meant by self-forgetting, and how did he purpose to accomplish that. So we set out again, and we listen more plainly to what this 11th step has to offer. Now, what of prayer? Prayer is the raising of the heart and mind to God, and in the same sense includes meditation. How may we go about it, and how does it fit in with meditation? Prayer, as commonly understood, is a petition to God. Having opened our channel as best we can, we try to ask for those right things of which we and others are in the greatest need, and we think that the whole range of our needs is well defined by the part of step 11, which says knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So this will be mine to be done, or his will be done, not mine. Perhaps one of the greatest rewards of meditation and prayer is a sense of belonging that comes to us. We no longer live in a completely hostile world. We are no longer lost and frightened. The moment we catch even a glimpse of God's will, the moment we begin to see truth, justice and love as a real and eternal thing in life, as we no longer deeply disturbed by all the seemingly evidence to the contrary that surrounds us in purely human affairs, we know that God lovingly watches over us. We know that when we turn to Him, all will be well with us, here and hereafter. And now I will turn to the 12th step. And this is the longest step in the book. If you count the pages, there's 12 and a half pages, and if you count both sides of the page, it's 25. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. The theme of the 12th step is the joy of living is the name, is the theme of the 12th step, and action is the key word. Here we turn outwards towards our fellow alcoholics who are still in distress. Here we experience the kind of giving that asks no rewards. Here we begin to practice all 12 steps of the program in our daily lives, so that we and those about us may find emotional sobriety. When the 12th step is seen in its full implication, it is really talking about the kind of love that has no price tag on it. What 12 steps also says, as a result of practicing all the steps, we have found something called a spiritual awakening. To new ears, this often seems like a very dubious and implorable state of affairs. What do you mean when we talk about a spiritual awakening? They ask. Well, there's 1,000 and different awakenings, spiritual awakenings. I know I got my spiritual awakening when I did the 5th step. And you see, on this step also, it tells you about the other 11 steps before the 12th. It is very real sense that we are transformed because he has laid down hold of a source of strength which is, in one way or another, he had hitherto denied himself. He finds himself in possession of a degree of honesty, tolerance, unselfishness, peace of mind and love, of which he had thought himself quite incapable. What he has received is a free gift, and yet usually, at least in some small part, he has made himself ready to receive it. His manner of making ready to receive this gift lies in the practice of the 12 steps in our program. So let's consider briefly what we have been trying to do up to this point. Step 1 showed us an amazing paradox. We found that we are totally unable to be rid of alcohol obsession until we first admitted that we were powerless over it. In step 2 we saw that since we could not restore ourselves to sanity, some higher power must necessarily do it if we want to survive. Consequently, in step 3 we turned our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood Him. For the time being, we who were atheists or agnostics discovered that our own group, or A as a whole, was doomed for the moment. Beginning with step 4, we commenced to search out things in ourselves which had brought us to physical, moral and spiritual bankruptcy. We made a searching and fields moral inventory. Looking at step 5, we decided that an inventory taken alone wouldn't be enough. We knew we would have to quit deadly business of living alone with our conflicts, and in honesty confide those to God and to another human being. At step 6, many of us balked for the practical reason that we did not wish to have all our defects of character removed because we still loved some of them too much. Yet we knew that we had to make a settlement with a fundamental principle of step 6. So we decided that while We still had some flaws of character that we would not get rid of them. We ought, nevertheless, to quit our stubborn rebellion hanging on to them. We said to ourselves, this I cannot do today, perhaps, but I can stop crying out, no, never. Then in step 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings, such as we would under the conditions of the day we asked. In step 8, we concentrated our house cleaning, for we saw that we were not only in conflict with ourselves, but also with the people and situations in the world in which we lived. We had to begin to make our peace, and so we listed the people we had harmed and became willing to set things right. We followed this up in step 9 by making direct amends to those concerned, except when it would injure them or other people. By this time, at step 10, we had begun to get a basic for daily living, and we keenly realized that we would need to continue taking personal inventory, and when we were in the wrong, we ought to admit it promptly. In step 11, we saw that if a higher power had restored us to sanity and had enabled us to live with some peace of mind in a sorely troubled world, then such a higher power was worth knowing better. While direct contact is possible, this persistent use of meditation and prayer we found did open the channel so that where there had been a trickle, there was now a river, where it led us to some power and safe guidance from God, as we were increasingly better able to understand Him. So perhaps in these steps we had a spiritual awakening. And this is what the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. To practice these principles in all our affairs. Admit no faults to our fellows, getting rid of these faults, bringing love and peace into our life, walking in God's footsteps. You see, this is a beautiful program for us. Our little minds was warped by the mentality of a little child when we first came in, but we do grow, and we grow spiritually through the 12 steps. And I find myself is like a bank. The more you put in, the more you draw out. You put nothing in, you get nothing out. This is why on chapter 5 it says to go 20 lengths to get sober, and you go 20 lengths to remain sober. And so he speaks about half measures. He speaks about here the steps we took, which are suggested. And believe me, there's nothing suggested in this program of Alcoholics Anonymous for me. I really and truly want everything that's in our big book, and I want the 12 steps, because it has given me so much peace in my life. Today I can travel first class, second class, third class. I can travel by plane, coach, train. These are the choices in which I never had any choices when I was out there drinking. I haven't been in jail, I haven't been in mental institutions, I haven't picked organs off the street, I haven't slept rough, I haven't went to dustbins for food, I haven't walked 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 miles for a sandwich and tea. Thanks be to God, I have all these things at home today. I have the little food, I have a little fridge, I have a few clean clothes, I have a few euros. When I first came in, I had none of these things. I simply didn't know where I was going, what to do. But through the grace of God and ye people of Alcoholics Anonymous, you have shown me the way. You have shown me the road. And I'm so grateful. I go to a lot of meetings today. It's didn't trying to be a know-all. When I talk about the big book, I talk about it for the people who don't read it, for the people who can't read it, for the people who doesn't want to read it. And by me sharing about the big book, everybody gains. This is a fellowship where we care about each other, where we share each other, and we try and help each other. Men for men and women for women. You know, that doesn't mean if I meet a woman on the street I don't salute her or nothing like that. I'll stop and speak to that woman if the woman is in trouble. If she wants to speak to me, I will listen to that woman. It's when they come to sponsorship, you know, and this is only rightly so, because we must respect all women in Alcoholics Anonymous. We mustn't use them, we mustn't abuse them, we mustn't hurt them in no way. Because if I do start doing these things, this is not spirituality. This is being vindictive. This is looking to hurt people, you know, trying to destroy people. I done all these things when I was out there drinking. Today I'm a very contented, happy, peaceful, joyous human being. And I have respect for everyone. I have great respect for the people in service. I have great respect for the people who has religion. I have great respect for the people who has no religion. I have great respect for the people who's not in service. I give them each other the same respect. For that I am responsible there. When the hand that is still sucking alcoholic reaches out for help, my hand is supposed to be there. The hand the way I always ought to be there. And for that, I'm so grateful.